This topic is absolutely perfect for us.
Why?
Because you're the salesman.
Yeah.
I'm the marketer.
Am I just a salesman though?
I think you're just a salesman.
I think I'm more than that, but I appreciate that.
Just barely.
Yeah, I get it.
Today we're talking about branding and marketing versus sales.
But hang on, why did you say that you're the what? Brand person, or what was
Yes.
it? Okay, and why? Because I don't think people know that.
All right. Well, let's
People don't know that.
Tell
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
so
yeah. And
my
flex a
background,
little.
my background is I have an MBA in branding and marketing that I got years and years ago, but it was an eye-opener for me for sure, particularly when I was deciding that I wanted to get into real estate sales. And in my mind, it made sense that branding and marketing is kind of top of the funnel, and if you can nail that, the sales would come more naturally. What I found so interesting is that I met you, who's like a born and bred salesperson at your core. So like, you go into sales mode really quickly, where I go into marketing and branding really quickly.
And I think that having the mesh of the two is awesome. It's why I think From the Ground Up Media is working so well. Because, well, I mean, at the end of the day, anybody who's watching or listening, I implore you to let us know, like, are you liking this content that you're getting? We're coming at it from an educational perspective, which is really like in that bucket of branding and marketing, which is cool because then the sale, I think you said that you used the word that the sales is more natural.
Well, it happens a little easier.
That's where I was going to go with that.
I think we should actually start off with maybe defining, at least what you and I, like, what do you think sales is?
Well, I think sales is one-on-one combat for a transaction. You know, like it's very transactional. Like you're selling a phone, a coffee cup, a service, like a media service.
So there's actually some sort of exchange.
Exactly, and it's very short term, especially in people's mindset. Like when you're a salesperson, most salespeople, it's let me get the transaction done and move to the next person. Or the next product or service.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. And I would probably then on the flip side describe branding and marketing perhaps as a little bit more high level, trying to build awareness to a broad community about your product or service. So, for example, people who have done branding and marketing really, really well, and let's just call it branding. Like if you have a really, really strong brand, you don't necessarily need to sell that much. Companies that come to mind, like Nike, for example. We've discussed this offline before. Like people go to the store to buy Nikes. It's not necessarily that there's a salesperson even there trying to push a product on you or to sell you its attributes and to tell you
I used to work in footwear. Laura, I used to work in footwear, right?
That's probably why we talked about this,
Yeah,
right?
no, like as a salesperson, I used to work and sell shoes.
Yeah.
And in the footwear department, very few times like did I actually have to speak to people about Nike. On the flip side, there was back then, I don't think anyone knew about New Balance, Asics. Some say Saucony, some say Saucony. I think it's Saucony. Like none of these names everybody knew.
And my guess is that if you tried to sell people those and they came in for Nike, there was no way, even though you could say the price point's better, it's better for running, it's better for people with your foot, they, in their mind, wanted Nikes no matter what.
And it sucked back then too, right? Like this is going back 20-something odd years ago, 25 years ago. Like it wasn't like you could do some quick research on Google and say, what is Asics, right? To your point, when I would, because I actually thought some of the comparisons from a Nike shoe and a New Balance shoe, New Balance was better. But because they didn't have a brand name, nobody knew about them. It was such a harder sale. I want to go back to something and ask you something directly, especially for real estate agents and mortgage brokers, Laura. This buzzword, branding. I think what we're hearing a lot more is personal branding. What the heck is it?
Yeah, that's a great point because every time that we've brought up the Nikes of the world or Gatorade or Apple, people say, yeah, but I'm not, as a real estate agent, I'm not Nike, I'm not any of those things. So it would be silly of me to think of it as that. I actually think that's false. I think if you as a salesperson, a real estate agent, and you're running a business of one person, if you can remove yourself from being transaction focused and remove yourself from being strictly a salesperson and really look at your little tiny business as a business, because you might not even think of it as that. You might say, oh, I just sell real estate. I'm just a salesperson. You need to be a marketer. You need to be a personal brand. And what do I mean by that is you need to start thinking about what you want your brand to say. So you already have a reputation. People already speak about you one way or another behind closed doors when you leave the room. So now let's get super focused on, well, what do I want the narrative to be said about me when I'm behind closed doors? Maybe I can dictate that in a way. Maybe I can shift it in some sort of way. And I think when you as a salesperson, because in Ontario or in the Greater Toronto area, we have, what is it?
70,000.
Yeah, 70,000 real estate agents on the Toronto Real Estate Board. That's a lot of people, and we're all vying for very limited inventory to sell or help people buy.
And 62,000 of them have the same type of picture, standing like this.
Yes,
doing that kind of look.
And I love a suit. Like, I love fashion.
I'm not even talking about what they're wearing.
I mean,
it's the same type of thing.
And quite frankly, those pictures haven't been updated in years.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what do you even stand for? Well, I stand for integrity. Okay, most people should. That to me is like a bare minimum in business. So if that's all you stand for, okay, what else is setting you apart? Well, I work a certain farming neighborhood. Okay, great. You and 12,000 other people work that neighborhood. What else? Well, and then all of a sudden they go in their minds, well, I really like cooking. Oh, now we're on to something. Now you're a real estate agent and a person who likes cooking. And I think if you can get really clear on what that and is, what that extra piece is, that's where you start to kind of build the blocks of creating your own personal brand. And then I say shout that stuff from the rooftops, because that's the thing that's going to make you most memorable.
Now, I think what you're saying is going to go over a lot of people's heads. And the reason is because you're telling a real estate agent or a mortgage broker that you're giving them the permission to speak about their love for cooking, fashion, sports, business, hats, crypto, all that kind of stuff, right? But I know they're worried and they're scared that if they start talking about any one of those 10 things that I just mentioned, that they're gonna start either losing business or what's gonna happen is that people are not gonna see that they're in real estate. So now what do you have to say though?
I'll break that down in a couple different ways. First and foremost, I would say when you are speaking to the world, the way I like to look at it is like the 60-40 rule. So 60% of the time, you should be speaking about the thing that you know most about. So again, you're a real estate agent, talk about real estate 60% of the time. Show people how educated and experienced or unexperienced that you are, inexperienced if you're new to real estate. Showcase that. And then the other 40% of the time, dabble in some other things that you're interested in. And it doesn't only have to be one thing. You can talk about your dog and hats. Like, you can talk about more than one thing, but definitely start to get an idea of what else am I? I think that's really the important part. And then just go ham on it. Have some fun in it.
But why, Laura?
Well, why? Okay. So you had asked me the question, people get a little bit nervous about putting stuff out there, right? Because what if I turn people away? What if my client doesn't like fashion and all I post is fashion stuff? You have to understand the principles of plenty. There is a lot of business to go around. There is no way that you will ever get 100% of the business, particularly in a competitive market. So knowing that you're never gonna get 100% of the business, now let's try and navigate and find the people who we actually want to work with. Wouldn't you rather go driving around every single weekend and spending evenings upon evenings and multiple offers with someone that has something in common with you? And the only way to find that out is by actually showcasing something of yourself, losing some of the people who don't have the same interests as you, and finding the ones who do. I think it boils down to this. If you try to be if you try to appeal to everybody, you're gonna appeal to nobody.
Yeah, I think that definitely resonated with me when we kind of went through this exercise where I started to talk about my passion for business and wanting to document the journey of growing a team. I also wanted to speak about the 60% of the time talking to real estate home buyers, sellers, and investors. But then if anybody who flirts around on my content, you'll see a lot of content where I'm speaking to real estate agents and mortgage brokers because I have a passion for it. Like I want them to learn. Now some might say, well, your clients are gonna get confused. No, the clients that want more information about buying, selling, and investing, they'll reach out when they're ready. They're also seeing me educate other real estate agents, and it does obviously help me because they have that much more confidence in me now that I'm actually out there educating other real estate agents. You did speak about, and I definitely wanted to go back to it, when you said that you're not gonna get 100% of the business. Like, anybody who's in the GTA, there's 6.6 million people in the Greater Toronto Area. To your point, that you're not going to get around to everyone when you're driving around in the car and you're talking about your love for dogs. You, as a salesperson, the less you speak about the actual product or service, I guarantee you, the more sales you'll be doing, because it becomes like the aftermath of the rapport and the relationship that you're building. Quickly, to add to that, imagine not only working with people that have the same likes and passions as you, but know that they're going to be introducing you to people that have the same, because we all hang around with people that are similar to us, right? And so you're going to really be building out that tribe that much more.
That's so interesting, because that's coming from a person who you're kind of sales first. Like, I think over time you've started to realize the power of
I was sales first, sorry. Like, I really want to, because...
No, that's what I'm saying. Over time you started to realize the power of personal branding. And I have watched single-handedly how that has changed. So, Jas, you used to be sitting down with new clients and, their arms were like this and they were not sure. And it was like, is he going to just try and steal my checkbook today?
When is he?
When is he going to do it? What is he selling me? And it was like this all the time. And it wasn't until you started playing a little bit more with letting them in on who you really were, letting them in on where you're from and what your parents did for a living, and showcasing a little bit more of that vulnerable side, that all of a sudden now people are coming in like this. Oh my God, Jas, I know everything about you. How's your brothers? How's your mom? How's that? All these things. People come in and talk to me. Laura, how's Rudy doing? And already they went from this to this before we even met with them. And that makes the sales so much easier. So if you are sales oriented, understand that by building a proper brand, it will get the sale easier. And so you are doing yourself a favor simply by focusing more on the high level funnel.
And I think you asked this before, what's the major difference? And you probably even mentioned it. But we've been doing this for so long that sometimes I even tune you out.
You always tune me out.
You got that one.
You always
like
tune
that one.
me
I had to sneak that one in there. Sales to me is at the bottom of the funnel, right? And branding is at the top of the funnel. We touched on why you should do it. We touched on even telling kind of some real stories. So I think it's very jam-packed as a promise moving forward on the FTGU show here. You're watching on YouTube, not sure where you might be listening on iTunes or Spotify. We're going to keep these under 10 minutes, okay? Because we want to give people
we're going to try, but he talks too much.
12 now. It's, well,
we
Steve,
already messed
he told us 12 minutes. I love that. So we're going to bring this to a quick close, okay? My question to you is, how do you actually do it? How do you actually have people coming in and unfolding your arms? I get the speaking about the fashion and all that, but what's the mediums I can use?
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about how you're gonna, so I've decided that I wanna talk about cooking. Okay, talk about cooking where. So there's lots of ways you can do that. You don't have to be a person who enjoys the camera. In fact, a lot of the clients that we work with are scared shitless of the camera. So it's okay, you don't have to start there. But I'd say pick the medium in which you're most comfortable. So there's audio platforms. You could start with a podcast. There is video. Of course, you could do something like a webinar. You could, if you don't want to host a webinar for a long period of time, you could just pick up your phone, put it on selfie mode, and do a less than 1 minute video. Maybe you're great at taking photographs, and you can tell your story through photographs. What a lot of people, I think, don't think about doing is a blog, right? Like, we've forgotten the written word. And that can be very, very powerful. And if you don't want to really put yourself out there like that, but you're a great writer, try writing some of these things down. Maybe it's a recipe, again, if you're into cooking, and you send that out to people. And that will allow you to put yourself out there to get that, what your and is, out to the world without you necessarily having to just be on the camera.
I love the writing part, because when you write first, when you actually get around to doing camera, because you have to at some point, in my opinion, get to camera. It could be 6 months, a year, 2 years. Why? Because we just make an easier connection like this. You already have your scripts because you wrote them all down. Elto, I'm good. You have one last tip for anybody? Or are you good?
Just get started.